it just took something out of my heart that will never be replaced.
How am I going to tell my 6-year-old little girl about this? I just didn't want to believe it.
We all need to get serious and come together, all communities, in order to get this stuff under control.
Help Arkansas
Declare victory
over violence.
This week has been a challenging week. It started out, on Saturday with the news of a 10-year-old girl getting shot at a park in Little Rock, and Jayla Hughes is her name. She was there with her family, people got in a fight, and gunshots started, and she ended up getting shot and ended up dying. So
yeah, again, our prayers go out to the Hughes family. And then of course we just had a shooting last night of another female, unfortunately, that was dropped off at the hospital. I mean, this is all the shootings that took place in Atlanta, 8 people murdered there last night. It's just on and on and on. And it's just, we got to do something about this.
And actually this video we're showing right now is video from, pretty much the last 4 shootings that have happened here in the Little Rock area. So, we had one at the Chuck E. Cheese last week, and
right.
Then there was one at the Embassy Suites parking lot hotel the same night as the 10-year-old girl was shot. So
right.
Here we are again, and we want to try to find solutions. That's the whole point of the show, is to try to find solutions to this.
Tonight, 2 Little Rock organizations disturbed by the number of shootings and killings in the capital city we've seen lately. Arkansas Stop the Violence and parents of murdered children came together for a vigil today. Just yesterday, we reported on 5 shootings in one day. They say the shootings and killings along with the virus is a terrible combination.
We're praying and hoping that we can come together and get our city back on the move, where people can be able to move around and understand and get back to work and loving each other.
They also hope that the vigils will bring awareness the community needs to be banding together to help stop the shootings before it gets worse.
Police reaching out to gun owners today with a message: please get a gun lock. Officers announced the initiative this morning, a day after a 4-year-old died in an accidental shooting at a hotel. Police have an additional 80 gun locks available across the city. They're free. LRPD says no questions will be asked if you request one. Mitch McCoy spoke with LRPD Live today on Facebook.
How easy is it to kind of become numb and say, oh, that won't happen to me?
Yeah, I mean, if you have children or small children, you know how inquisitive they are and how their curiosity is running wild. So accidents happen.
The gun locks are available at LRPD headquarters on Markham and all police substations. You can watch Mitch's full conversation on our website, KARK.com.
I do want to go ahead and bring in our guest now, Mr. Lonnie Beulah. Did I say your last name right?
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Ms. Ashley.
Yes, thanks so much for joining us. So for people who don't know, I kind of want to give a little background. So you have a story of redemption, as Robert likes to call it. I love that he likes to call it that. And so for people who don't know, you were convicted of murder when you were 15 years old, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And so, and you spent 19 years in prison?
19 years.
Wow. Okay, so I kind of want to first ask you, can you take us back, I guess? What would you like to share about what happened when you were 15?
I guess if I had to start any place in time, I mean, it probably was the high point of me being a byproduct, maybe, of a society, I was a part of, not to excuse any of my decisions or just basically the participation that I played in the role. My brothers and I, 2 other brothers and I, my mother had 5 children, so she basically lost, over 2/3 of her family at the time, of the boys she was raising. So I guess if I had to start at a point that was pivotal, it was pivotal that all my actions just kind of led up to that moment that would just, you know, the forces would be taken away from me. We were involved in, like, it was, I guess, a participation in the murder for hire. Things went wrong, and due to outside forces of us trying to, make money, just do stuff to live, basically. We were just, I guess, just led away by bad decisions, bad choices at the time. So
yeah. Teen violence, of course, is a very big issue, a big thing that we do want to combat. And as I said, we all have to be part of that solution. And one person who is working to be part of that solution is McKenna in El Dorado. So I want to go ahead and bring in McKenna now and just kind of, first of all, McKenna, tell us a little bit about, you're a part of the Share Foundation. So what exactly is the Share Foundation? Oh, I think you might be muted still. It's Zoom, right?
It's Zoom.
Okay.
What do you,
There we go. Can you hear me? Are we good?
Yep, we can hear you now. All right.
Okay, so I currently serve as an AmeriCorps Vista within the Share Foundation. So a Vista is basically a volunteering service to America. So it is basically volunteer work, but we're doing it on a level as me being under the Share Foundation, actually under the VIP, which is Violence Intervention Plan. I'm actually, we're working to reduce violence at a prevention level. So basically I work closely with the VIP coalitions to help adults and children to educate them about prevention with drugs, prevention with violence, anything that deals with prevention. That is what I work with, and closely with kids, because, you know, at a prevention level, we want to help kids, and that's where we can start it.
Andrew Dunlap and his friends are putting the final touches on their jazz ensemble.
I'm just like a dancer and a singer in the front row.
They've been working on this routine for a few months now as part of the Tendaji Community Development Corporation's Impact Program.
It's teaching us a little bit about teamwork, like speaking and listening.
About 200 students from Little Rock area schools come to St. Mark Baptist Church for this art-infused after-school program.
Important to research. Students who participate in the arts perform better, not just through the arts, but academically as well.
Sheila Hayes is the director and says Impact is setting the standard for after-school programs across the country. The group just got back from the Beyond School Hours conference in Orlando, Florida. There, they got to show off everything they've been working on here in the natural state.
It's a humbling experience, but it also gives us confirmation that we are doing the right thing.
Action.
The Timmons Art Foundation is directing the jazz ensemble. Teresa Timmons-Schamberger says the skills the students learn have proven to help them in school.
We had one student in particular who had issues with literacy and comprehension. By the end of the school year, not only was he amazing in the play, but his grades had increased, and his literacy and understanding and comprehension increased as well.
Which is the overall goal of Tendaji's Impact. In Little Rock, I'm Ashley King.
There is currently a wait list for students to join the program, but if you'd like more information on how to get your student involved, just head to KARK.HAND, look under the story for Victory Over Violence. You'll see the section.
Veterans. With Channel 4, Channel 16, or our Victory Over Violence campaign, you know, we've always said that we're going to be solution-oriented. And so this is going to be just a small part of what we're trying to do in our community to bring the community together. We're developing straw bale gardens around the community in various locations to help children learn how to garden. There's a whole lot behind that. Also to bring families together to garden and to bring the community together. We've already have neighborhood organizations, neighborhood associations that are working with several of our Boys and Girls Clubs on these projects. So we're real excited, and they're called Victory Gardens of Love. So when you see these signs out in the neighborhoods, you're going to say, oh, there's a Victory Garden of Love that's over there. Maybe I can get involved and help those people.
Yep.
I wouldn't be where I am today. I might have been dead if it hadn't been for hand-up housing.
An Arkansas woman fighting back tears as she talks about how a North Little Rock nonprofit changed her life. Hand Up Housing has helped shelter 135 homeless people in the past 10 years.
As Ashley King explains, that's why Rainwater Holton Sexton is giving them the Difference Makers Award.
Melissa Walton is proud to show off her house. She lives here with two of her sisters. Her third sister, Santa Walton, lives next door. For these sisters, having a roof over their head is life-changing.
I just was tired of the sleeping on the floor and just tired of being unstable, because when you have kids, you should be stable.
Thanks to Hand Up Housing of Arkansas, Santa is now stable. Donald Williams and his wife started Hand Up Housing 10 years ago.
It came out of a need of homeless people needing a place to go, and so we offer classes. We call it holistic, so it's faith-based. We say we accept people like God does until God can get them where they need to be.
The nonprofit currently has 3 fully furnished houses in North Little Rock. Clients just pay a small fee to live there. The goal is for them to complete the program within a year and move out into their own place, which is what Bernadette Reynolds did in 2014.
Because it was such a struggle being homeless and not having people to encourage you or back you up or lift you up, to support you as you're trying to go forward. I wouldn't be where I am today. I might have been dead if it hadn't been for Hand Up Housing.
The life-changing work isn't going unnoticed.
Rainwater Holton Sexton presents this $1,000 check to Hand Up Housing. Thank you for making a difference by providing temporary housing needed by persons trying to find a new life.
I'm happy that people are, giving Hand Up Housing some light, and I'm ready to move on so that this can be a place for somebody else and they can receive the blessings of it.
Hand Up Housing says the money will help with remodeling more homes. In North Little Rock, I'm Ashley King.
Because community matters, Arkansas is second in the nation for food insecurity. Now that the holidays are here and we're still in the middle of a pandemic, the need is greater than ever. So today we are hosting our Food for the Holidays telethon, asking you to help your neighbors that you might not even know are in need of help. Mandy Knoll is joining us live at the Arkansas Food Bank this morning, and that's where volunteers are working to make sure no Arkansan goes hungry. Mandy?
That is the goal, and this year, like you said, the need's greater than ever. Today is one of the biggest days of the year for the Arkansas Food Bank, and we want to talk with people all morning to explain why this is such a big deal. Hunger is such a basic need, but I'm joined right now by a volunteer, Suzanne Volner.
A Facebook post by a Little Rock police officer is taking off on social media after a stranger made an unexpected delivery to multiple cops who were out working the protest on Monday night. Our Hillary Hunt has this story.
I think that people need to know that they're taken care of, like someone loves them.
You could say kindness is in Joe Klein's DNA.
I was thinking to myself, well, who's helping take care of them?
So Monday night, he stopped by this Little Rock donut shop.
Cookies and cream.
It picked up a few for Little Rock police officers working the protest.
So I just went in, bought some donuts down the street, and walked and gave them to him.
Little did he know his simple gesture would gain a lot of attention on social media after Detective Brittany Van Rossum posted this.
I just kind of wanted to share this guy and what he had done.
It wasn't about what was in this brown bag. It was about the message that came with it.
We have been working a lot of extra hours and no days off, and it was really great to have just someone genuinely care, and his smile just kind of warmed you. Just his smile, let alone the act.
Just proving sometimes it's the smallest actions that can carry the loudest message. A message Joe encourages you to pass on.
You don't have to duplicate the way that you've seen other people love. Make up new ways.
Picture is worth 1,000 words.
Time to time, I have to force myself to take a moment. This has been one of those weeks. You kicked off with the shooting of a 10-year-old girl. That will set you back on your heels, and it should. Another story was about a 10-year-old who died. The parents are facing charges. There were other shootings and other deaths. There always are. People often say to me, I don't watch the news. Too much violence and tragedy. Yes, there is. Just another day at the office, right? Well, yeah, and there are good days and there are bad days. And yes, it gets to each one of us from time to time. But when we open up the window to these things that we show you each night, we don't want people to slam that window shut and draw the blinds. We do it in part hoping people will see these things through the window, go to the door, and take a step toward change. We try through our Victory Over Violence campaign. The people and kids we've reached, you'll never know about. You'll never hear about them. You won't see their mugshots, hear about their crimes they committed. They or their parents saw a chance to walk through that door toward change. They know who they are, and we should be proud of all of them, and we are. We also ran a story this week where the mother of a young woman who was murdered talked about the last time she spoke to her. And she said this: don't forget, when you see your child, tell them you love them. It could be your last words. Great advice. Yes, accidents tragically do happen, but when we're losing young people, children, to gunfire, abuse, and neglect at the hands of another, if we all haven't tried to change something out there, we all own a piece of the bad. If we try and encourage doing the right things, helping, not hurting others, and working to make a better life for yourself and others, the view out that window we open up each night will never force anyone to reach for the blinds. Take a moment.
Victory Over Violence, Digital Town Hall. A conversation about race in Arkansas.
Stop fighting! Stop fighting! You're gonna get tased! You're gonna get tased!
I can never imagine your pain or the depth of your anguish, but I can promise to fight for justice for all of our people.
Somebody loved him. Like, regardless of how the officer felt about him or whatever, he was a man.
And I'm doing everything I'm told to do, and we still are looked at as easy prey, easy targets.
The overwhelming number of officers in this nation are good people, working hard, trying to keep order in the communities.
I'm announcing a new order today regarding neck restraints, commonly called chokeholds.
Things that we used to do, even as recent as last week, we cannot still do some of those same things.
We need to have the conversation, not with just our black and brown moms and kids. White people need to have that conversation. I don't want to see another traumatizing video.
Welcome to our Victory Over Violence Digital Town Hall, Policing in Arkansas, Trust and Accountability. I'm Donna Terrell. As we've seen in the last few weeks, the conversation on the state of policing in America is shifting. The protest, the movement has sparked changes here and around the country. It's an emotional topic that tackles the question, how do we mend the relationship between the police and the community? Tonight, our focus is on communities in Arkansas. Joining me for this town hall are attorney Richard Mays of Mays Burden Associates, who is also a former state Supreme Court justice. Jamie Cook, secretary of the Arkansas Department of Public Safety and a member of the newly formed Governor's Law Enforcement Task Force. Chris Danford is a member of Grassroots Arkansas, a protest group. Wesley Peters, also a protester, and runs a nonprofit called Conducting Creativity. And Sergeant Willie Davis with the Little Rock Police Department and head of the OK Our Kids program. I want to thank you all for joining me for this. There seems to be a disconnect between the community and police. In a recent Axios Ipsos poll, only 36% of blacks said they trust the police. Compare that to 77% of white respondents. So, Wesley and Chris, I want to begin with you two on this question. Why do you think there is mistrust and what can be done to change it? Wesley, why don't you start?
Victory Over Violence, Digital Town Hall. A conversation about race in Arkansas.
Be encouraged. Don't stop saying Black Lives Matter.
The chance for change amplified, growing more angry, more aggressive.
We seem to be the target of the day.
Pitting black lives against blue lives against all lives.
Seeing somebody just walk up and just start shooting on them, it's
It pisses me off.
A thin line being drawn, widening the divide.
Oh, I'm angry. I'm mad right now.
Blurring the mission, even the natural state caught up in the equation.
If you're not going to be part of the solution, then don't be the problem.
But how do we solve the problem?
There's difficult conversations that need to be had.
To come up with a better solution, in tonight's Victory Over Violence, a conversation between black and blue lives bridging the divide.
Thanks for joining us for this Victory Over Violence Town Hall. I'm Ashley King. Tonight we are continuing the difficult conversation about race in America. The question we are asking tonight, in a world where racial tensions are so high, can the Black Lives Matter movement and police supporters coexist, and how does this conversation impact our future as well as our children? We put together a great panel to tackle this difficult conversation. Joining us now is Black Lives Matter supporter who, Back the Blue NWA organizer Kyle Norris, counselor Kalea Anderson, Conway Junior High School student Aiden Esslinger, and Harding University freshman Dawson Teague. So there seems to be a little bit of confusion when it comes to the motive behind Black Lives Matter and also Back the Blue. So Kyle, you and I had a conversation earlier this week about why you prefer Back the Blue over Blue Lives Matter. So can you elaborate?
Victory Over Violence, Digital Town Hall. A conversation about race in Arkansas.
Outrage that began in the Twin Cities of Minnesota spreads to cities and towns across the nation, across the world. When George Floyd died in police custody, a cry came to life.
Justice! When do we want it? Now!
Echoes of flashbangs, the sting of tear gas and rubber bullets, along with helicopters and armed vehicles, held the violence at bay. Protesters nationwide and right here in Arkansas keep asking for change.
All lives matter, but more importantly, right now, Black Lives Matter, and everybody in the world needs to know that.
We all gotta all walk away knowing that we're on the elevator, y'all, in history. Don't think for a second that he represents who these cops are from all over the county and around this nation. We go out there to help people, not do that nonsense. So please don't put us all in the same pot.
It's about to go off.
Local law enforcement officers putting their lives on the line to protect protesters and their mission to be heard, and at the same time, the cities and people they serve.
I took my helmet off and laid the batons down.
Some joining the cause, calling for a change and praying for peace.
We are out here for every single person, and we are demanding justice. We are demanding change.
I want to hear about how we can do better, how we can make sure that we are providing equal justice.
A conversation that began when George Floyd's voice was silenced has never been as loud.
This moment is a tipping point to change America.
Unrest unfolded this week across the nation in our own Capitol steps. The protests turned from peaceful to violent. I'm Jay Bird.
I'm Donna Terrell. The message remains the same. People want change, but to start change, you have to have a conversation, and that's why we're here.
And joining us is community advocate Darius Walton, Brian Rogers with the Mosaic Templars Cultural Center, and Bart Simpson, the Bart Simpson, is with the Fraternal Order of Police.
And we also have State Senator Bob Ballinger, State Representative Reginald Murdoch, and Police Chief Carl Menden. Thanks for being with us.
And something protesters say is that someone like myself, a white guy, can't understand systemic racism. I want to start with Darius. So I guess when we hear that term systemic racism, what does that kind of mean to you? What is that defined as?
Victory Over Violence, Digital Town Hall. A conversation about race in Arkansas.
Here to protest, to say that we need to end the racism just today.
The world knows their names. Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, George Floyd.
The world knows George Floyd. I know Perry Jr.
Their deaths have sparked a fire in the hearts of those who are saying enough is enough.
Power, power, power to the people.
But Arkansans also know Eugene Ellison, James Hartsfield, Bradley Blackshire, and ask, what about them? So many names, so many instances have brought this nation to a tipping point.
I think it's important for the community to see that I'm willing to listen and that we have no problem with making the changes that they request.
We have to build strong relationships in the community, and then this is part of that.
Amid the protests, the marches, the anger, where do we go from here?
Welcome to our Victory Over Violence digital town hall. Race in Arkansas, the tipping point. I'm Ashley King. Tonight we're going to talk about the changes we're seeing and what more needs to be done. Joining us on our panel are Drika Wrights, a community activist from here in Little Rock, Andrea Galindo, a community activist and founder of Level Up Little Rock, LaRon McAdoo, a public school educator at Central High School, current LRPD Chief J.C. White with the Little Rock Black Police Officers Association, and Jimmy Warren, who is an activist and member of the governor's Law Enforcement Task Force. Now, before we get to all of you guys and get y'all's opinion on some things, we want to take a look at the statistics here. According to a paper published in Science Magazine, 25% of people need to take a stand before large-scale social change occurs. And we are seeing that stand take place right now on a global scale. In Europe, protesters are toppling historic statues with links to slavery. In the United States, NASCAR is banning Confederate flags at races. The U.S. military is talking about removing the names of some Confederate leaders from installations, and petitions to remove Confederate monuments in Little Rock and Hot Springs are gaining traction online. So let's go ahead and start with LaRon. As an educator, can you talk about what this means to see protesters literally taking these historical statues out of the ground and essentially just getting rid of them?